Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here to make, I hope, what should be an obvious point, but it seems that it needs a little bit of driving home. Recently, I got a comment from somebody who took me to task for being, let's just say, excessively harsh. I'm never excessively harsh. I'm always appropriately harsh. That's how I feel about it. But, there can be other opinions, however uninformed they may be. I was excessively harsh on that horrible recording of Mahler's Ninth Symphony from Alpha on period instruments with, what was it, like the Mahler Institute Orchestra or some strange thing like that, some pickup ensemble, which claimed to be using the original authentic Viennese instruments that Mahler had in mind. And I pointed out at the time that performance just sucked, and it really made no difference, and the whole thing was a joke and a fraud and a scandal. And was that harsh? Really? I thought it was rather accurate as to the facts. Here's the bottom line. Instruments don't make music. People make music. What matters is not what they're built of, but how they sound when they're played by people who know how to play them. Now, let us assume, I really want to take this a little further because it really is an important thing. There are whole schools out there of people who are doing things, particularly when it comes to music of the early 20th century, the late 19th century, who claim that they're doing the, authenticity, historically informed thing. And it's all bullshit. It's totally ridiculous. 99.9% of it is anyway, because the instruments that they use are essentially the same as the instruments we're using today. The Vienna Philharmonic, for example, this is the iconic instance, has several pools of instruments which are unique to that particular orchestra. Their clarinets, their oboes, their horns, their trumpets, those are all made according to a tried and true Viennese tradition, which is not shared by most other ensembles. There's no question about that. No question about that. And those instruments do have distinctive timbral characteristics. But that doesn't matter. What matters is, do the people who play them know what they're doing? In other words, let's just take woodwind instruments. Woodwind, because I was a clarinetist, and a lot of you people, I'm sure, have played, wind instruments. As you all know, if you are woodwind players, what matters every bit as much as the construction of the main body of the instrument is the reed. And a lot of players make their own reeds. They spend their lives carving little reedy things and winding them together. And my woodwind playing friends, live and die by their reeds. And those reeds can really change how their instrument sounds. Is it enough to change its difference between an oboe in Vienna and an oboe in France? Well, sometimes yes, sometimes no. It differs with every individual player. And let's face it, although the instruments that they may use may be special, the players are hired not because they use those instruments, but because of their artistry in performing on them. The issue for me, if you want to deal with authenticity, is not whether or not this pickup ensemble to do Mahler Ninth could reproduce some of the instruments that were around in Mahler's time, or even borrow them if they're sitting around at an antique store or something, or still being used even, because a lot of them are. Violins are used for hundreds and hundreds of years, as we know. No, the issue is, would any of the people in that pickup ensemble have been hired to play in the Vienna Philharmonic? That's the question. What is the caliber of performer? Because if they're not players at that level, who gives a damn what they're playing? They could be playing kazoos for all the difference it's going to make. It's just absurd. It's ridiculous to think that this group of probably very well-educated conservatory-type people is going to reproduce the sound of the Vienna Philharmonic. And by the way, we know what the Vienna Philharmonic sounded like in Mahler's Ninth because Bruno Walter recorded them in 1938, just before the Angelus, when their concertmaster was still Mahler's brother-in-law, Arnold Rosé. You know, all those people were still kicking around from Mahler's time, or a great many of them. And well, they sounded horrible, first of all. I mean, they were a mess. But we do have a sense of what the Viennese sound is. And does it sound anything like what these people did on Alpha? Well, no, it doesn't. And I just find it crazy that people think that there's some sort of meaningful difference, given all of the other factors. There are so many of them. I mean, there's the acoustics of the room. There's, years and years of corporate playing to achieve certain balances within sections. I mean, the idea that you could just have a seminar and bring them all together and reproduce something. No, it's wrong. You are not getting anything that's like the authentic stuff. And then there's the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is, what difference do these sounds make? I mean, in terms of the expression, musical expression, what the composer intended to tell us in the work. I mean, okay, let us assume, for the sake of argument, that every single instrument and player is doing exactly what, somebody would have done in Vienna or any place else at the turn of the century when Mahler was still alive. So what? I mean, if they are interpretive nullities, then it's not going to make any difference at all, is it? I mean, because what matters is how well they play, how well they understand Mahler, how well the conductor understands Mahler, how well they project the entire range of emotions that the work requires. I mean, that's what matters. What would you prefer? Something that sounds absolutely authentic, according to what maybe Mahler might have had in mind when he wrote the piece, but totally emotionally sterile and unidiomatic, or something which is done on perfectly fine modern instruments by musicians and a conductor who are steeped in the idiom and who know how to project it and understand what it is and give 150% emotionally. I mean, which is better? The idea that simple sounds, just the timbre, because an instrument is constructed a certain way, that it's better than an instrument that's constructed another way, that it's more appropriate to a particular type of music, is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I get it when the instruments are so different. I mean, when they have no valves. I mean, trumpets without valves, you cannot compare those to trumpets with valves. They're different instruments. And the technique for playing them is entirely different. But whether you have a rotary valve trumpet or a piston valve trumpet, a regular valve trumpet, an F or B flat, well, okay, yeah, sure. They're going to have some distinct timbral qualities. But they're not significant. They're not enough to make a difference in what the music means. And that's the issue. What does the music mean, and how do the players convey it with the tools at their disposal? I mean, it's like a carpenter having two different size hammers. Okay, one may be a little bit better for hitting this particular nail, but I mean, if all he has is the other one, it's still a hammer. You still get the job done. You can still hammer the nail in, and you can still hammer the nail in with as much accuracy and appropriateness as if you use the other hammer. It makes no difference. What matters is artistry. Yes, artistry. What matters is the capacity of the player to render the music. And so I just don't want to hear any more stupid comments, frankly, about the fitness of certain instruments to certain repertoire, independent of the question of interpretation, how they're played, the artistry of the performers, the talent of the performers. That's what matters. period. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.